Hi there, this is Matthew Davidson. Just gonna come and talk to you just for a few minutes uh, about a subject that's kind of becoming the buzz subject, or a buzz subject in America right now. It's actually two subjects, but they're pretty much linked together. So it's the subject of critical race theory, or CRT as they're calling it now, and systemic racism. Now, I will not deny one bit that in the past there has been a system in America where certain races of people, ethnic groups of people were systematically mistreated. But that began to turn around in the 1960s, and by the 80s that was pretty much a non-thing. It pretty much didn't exist anymore. Now there's still racism. There's still people within smaller systems which may have been and may still be racist, may still use their power over people of certain races to hold them down, hold them back. That may still exist. I'm sure it does, because that's human nature. Human nature is to use your power to affect the change that you feel should be affected, and should be things that should change, or should be the way they are. And you use your power to do that. So it still exists on a smaller level, but it doesn't exist anywhere near as much as it did in the 1950s and before that. Back when in the slavery days and in the Jim Crow era, as they call it. But the idea that racism is something that is inbred in a certain ethnic group of people, namely white people, and the idea that only white people can be racist and they cannot experience racism is absurd. And I'm not going to go back and try to find Google white people that have been enslaved and white people that have been mistreated because of their race or anything like that. There's plenty of that out there. But what I'm going to do today is just tell just a little short story about my life. I was born in 1970 in Stanton, Virginia, which is just kind of a little podunk town. Kind of a lot of Scottish people there for some reason. I don't know exactly why. If it was settled by Scottish people, I don't really know the history of Stanton, but I wasn't there very long. And as a baby and a small child, things were pretty easy for me. I didn't have a whole lot of issues or problems growing up. It was just a really simple, basic childhood, until I got to be about 5 years old, 5 or 6, and I began to go to school. And I went to not nursery school, what they call it, Head Start, which is basically nursery school, in Austin, Texas. And the majority of the people there, including the teachers, were Hispanic and black. I didn't realize this was because of my color, but at that time I began to be marginalized, set aside, ignored, somewhat mistreated, not like beaten or anything, but just somewhat mistreated. And anytime there was some sort of treat or some sort of special occasion, I was always one of the people that were last in line. There were 4 white people and probably 20 of other races, white kids and 20 of other races. And at age 5, I was raped by a black guy who was about, 16, 17 years old, something like that. His name was Ray or Ron or something. I don't remember now. But I was actually raped at age 5 by a black man, a young black man. And at that time, the reason he said he was raping me was not because he was attracted to me or anything like that. He said he was doing it because I was a white boy and I had deserved what I was getting. So I go on, age 6, and move into a place in a neighborhood where it's mostly Hispanic. And every time I'd walk out my door, oh, there's the white guy, there's the white kid, look at him, he's white, throwing things at me and calling me names and making fun of the way I dressed, and making fun of the way I walked, making fun of my skin color, making fun of my face, making fun of the books I had in my hand when I would go to wherever I was going, to school, first grade. In first grade, I had a white teacher, so it was a little easier on me because the non-white people there, the non-white students weren't as, didn't pick on me as much. And second grade, I was in Arizona, so Arizona's, there's a lot of white people there, so didn't have too big of a problem there. Uh, Third grade, we moved to Oklahoma, and of course, and in this time, 1977, 78, um, uh, we were poor. A lot of people were poor. I never really had much of anything growing up. I was dirt poor from up until I was old enough to work. We lived in a all black neighborhood, and basically an all black area of the city. It was probably 20 white people and 25,000 to 30,000 black and Hispanic people, mostly black. Uh, every day I would be chased by small gangs of people. There's the white kid. There's the white guy. Get him. Get the white kid. And I would find a way to get us to escape him. Every once in a while I couldn't escape him, and they would just randomly beat me up for no reason just because I was white. Uh, so we got broken into by black people. Our house got broken into, usually black kids, mid-teens age. A couple of times there were adults. I had a neighbor two doors down that would just come up randomly, even when I was at home, even when my parents were at home, and just start hitting me and beating me because I was white. And he said, "Hey, white boy, come over here. I'm gonna beat you up." So in school, in this mostly black area, most of the teachers there were black, so they treated me, the same way that I was treated in before when I was in kindergarten and whatever. Marginalized, or not kindergarten, but nursery school. Marginalized, somewhat mistreated, ignored, given all the nice opportunities last. So basically, what I'm pointing at and what I'm getting to is the fact that as a white person in these neighborhoods that I grew up in Texas and Oklahoma and Arizona, and not so much in Arizona, but Texas and Oklahoma, and up through till I was in high school, and I quit high school when I turned 17 because you were allowed to, if you could be an emancipated minor. And I only made it through the 9th grade. And a lot of the reason I quit so early was because I just couldn't stand being mistreated anymore and marginalized and put in the back of the line and put in the back of the class and ignored. And anytime you raise your hand, you have an answer for something, and they say, "Well, what about this guy behind you? What's your answer?" And this kind of thing. So the point I'm making is that as a white kid growing up, in the 70s and 80s, I experienced what is essentially systemic racism. It was a system of racism where the system worked in favor of another race, a race that was not my own. And the funny thing is I didn't come out of that experience at all feeling any hatred, maybe a little bit of mistrust, but not hatred for anyone. I had some anger issues, when I was a younger kid, but that was just a tiny part of it. But now, as a 50-year-old man, I don't hate or have any, negative feelings towards people that did those things to me at all. Even the guy that raped me, I feel sorry for him because he's, if he's still alive, he's probably in prison. He probably never amounted to anything. He probably, who knows what happened to him. But I was a victim of systemic racism. Now, it wasn't the same kind of systemic racism, perhaps, as black people have been exposed to in the last 150 years, but things are so much better now than they were then, even in the 70s. And for me, my life has improved. I've gone on to have many black and Hispanic friends and get along with them just fine and have no problem with them whatsoever. I have no animosity towards anyone. But it is possible to experience systemic racism regardless of what color you are. I'm living proof of that. And as far as critical race theory, the idea that the misdeeds of your ancestors or your predecessors make your ethnic group intrinsically bad or intrinsically racist or intrinsically oppressive is not true at all. I don't agree with it. I don't believe it. I can tell you this because I know that the people I've met people of the races that mistreated me when I was a kid. I've met them, as an adult, and I've met people all over the country, all over the world, that are members of these ethnic groups, and many of them have been very nice, kind people, intelligent, hardworking, not abusive, not haven't mistreated me. So systemic racism is something that anyone can experience, and critical race theory is false because it assumes that all the problems in the world are caused by racism, uh, and it also assumes that a certain kind of race of people are responsible for all the racism and all the negative things that go on in the world. It's probably true that white people have been the majority of people who have been racist over the last, say, 300 years or 400 years, but they are by no means the only people who um, um, are racist, and they are by no means the only people. They are by no means not a people that have not experienced racism. We have experienced racism, and so just want you to think about these things. Think about the lies that are being taught in schools and in businesses and everything else. Is there any truth to this critical race theory? No, there's not. It's not. There's nothing wrong with you as a person simply because you have a certain skin color. Um, is it possible to experience racism as a member of the white ethnic group? Yes, of course it is. So these things that they're telling us are lies. I'm not just speaking to white people, I'm speaking to everyone. Don't listen to this stuff. It's wrong. Um, and maybe I'd like to hear some people share some of their stories too. So just let me know what you think about what I said. This is just me sharing my experiences. I'm not here preaching a political agenda. I'm not talking about being a Trump supporter or anything like that. I'm just talking about things that have happened to me in my life. All right, thanks.